Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 13th of May, comes to you from London. And the dollar just sinking a little bit lower. These trade comments from Trump not really helping the dollar, and we are just seeing short term we are bearish. We've got a downside target some 2% lower, but we do have upside targets as well. And of course, the medium and long term picture is still bullish, so we're seeing a bit of a retracement here. The euro dollar is consequently looking a bit stronger, although we are in a downtrend and we still do have multiple downside targets hanging over us, so we expect any euro strength to be relatively short-lived. The Japanese yen, we're seeing the dollar weakness really showing through here, but there's a shortage of downside targets, so it's a bit early still to call the weakness there. But of course, the yen being a safe haven, so when there's uncertainty that's created by these trade wars, we're seeing a bit of a flight to the yen. Sterling looking relatively okay, still sitting at the 130 mark, bearish against that weaker dollar, so that is just short-term bearish, and of course the long-term chart is still bearish as well. Against the euro, sterling actually also looking a little bit weaker here as well, so the shine is just coming off the sterling chart, and against the Swiss franc we're sitting at 131. 32, so again in short-term bearish territory. Bitcoin has broken the $7,000 level, so just quietly creeping up for recovery. Interesting, we're seeing here we're at $7,500 yesterday. Remember, it's traded 24/7. So on Sunday we saw it at $7,500. We've come back a bit to $7,000, but we are definitely trending up. We are seeing new speculative moves there in Bitcoin. The S&P 500 index was down slightly on Friday, and so we are just seeing that trade wars having a little bit of an effect as well, and the Nasdaq also just looking a little bit lower there as well. The Dow actually also just struggling there, down 0.3% as well. The Russell 2000 index really we're seeing in bearish territory too, and markets just really taking their cue from these trade wars. We're seeing the E-mini S&P down 1.4% this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini down 1.67. So it does look like we're going to see a very significant fall to the downside today's opening in the US, and that's affecting European markets. We're down slightly on the UK market and in bearish territory on the short-term chart. Long-term starting to look more bearish as well. The UK midcaps index also lower, and the DAX in Germany down 0.75% this morning. So again, markets really being hit all around. The CAC Quarante is down 0.6%, and the Japanese market down 0.5%. The Hang Seng bucking the trend, up 0.8%, but the Shanghai index down 1.2%. We've seen China really hit resistance here and just fall back on that weekly chart on the lagging line. The Indian market we're seeing is fairly flat this morning, and the Aussie market is sitting 0.2% down. Looking at crude oil, Brent crude is up nearly 1% this morning, sitting at $71.29, so back into short-term bullish territory, and WTI is actually up 0.5%. Also just in short-term bullish territory. US nat gas sitting at $2.61 has really been in the doldrums for months now, just around these levels, so no real trend there. Taking a look at gold, we're sitting at $12.83. Despite all the turmoil, you'd think gold would be rising more, but we've got a very mixed picture here. We've got upside targets, some 2% higher, downside targets potentially 2% lower. So gold could go either way, and this long-term chart really just making up its mind at the moment. Looking at silver, down 0.6% this morning. It is actually in bearish territory, so not looking so good there. US 10-year yields we're seeing here still sitting at around 2.4%. So the outlook for US interest rates now very, very different. Long-term bearish, medium and short-term bearish. So it does suggest bond markets will rise, yields will fall, and we're seeing yield levels now as low as 2.37, 2.38, and the targets there. German bonds, as a result, rising, and we see here we're in a positive trend for the bond prices. Taking a look at the individual stocks, this data coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon or Metastock Zenith. Taking a look at the individual stocks, we start by looking at the Dow. On Friday, the big riser was Walmart, up 2.4%. So that chart looking pretty good. Not yet managing to move into positive territory on the relative. We're still slightly bearish, some 3% off on the Dow. Apple was hit pretty badly on Friday. They were down 1.4%. So we are just seeing that some of the tech was hit quite badly, but they've still outperformed the Dow by nearly 17% this year. So it's a fairly short-term fall in the scheme of things. Taking a look at the Nasdaq 100, the best performers were Booking.com. They were up 5% on Friday, so that was pretty good. And looking at the downside, we had Curate Retail. They were down a massive 27%. Symantec were down 12%. Some stocks being hit pretty bad. And of course, Uber came in on the market and made his debut on Friday as well. Taking a look and sold off a bit at the start. The Aussie market, just quickly, we take a quick look here. Lend-Lease Group up 8.7%, so they've had a terrible year. They're just starting to recover. That medium-term chart just looking a little bit better. And if we look at the downside, Reliance were down 15%. So we are still seeing some very big moves to the downside. Chinese stocks were hit, as we know, and if we look at the upside, we see there are only 5 stocks up. On the downside, we had multiple stocks down 5%, so we did see China Life Insurance, for example, hit by nearly 6% down. And then if we look at the Nifty 50 in India, we see here Housing Development, the best performer this morning. They're up 2%, still looking pretty good on the trend. And then on the downside, we had Aker Motors Limited down 5%. So they've been hit quite badly. And here we see the live pricing coming in from Yahoo Finance. Z Entertainment down 5% as well. Taking a look into Europe this morning, we start by looking at the UK market. The best performer is Centrica, despite having put cautious words out. The market has taken quite kindly to Centrica this morning, but the massive underperformance, more than 30% this year, 32% lower than the market performance, and we have got these downside targets. Shell, we're seeing BP, Shell, a lot of the oil majors are actually up this morning. IAG, the International Airlines Group, is also up, which is quite a surprise given the oil price, but still a fairly bearish looking chart. On the upside, on the downside, sorry, we've got Vodafone. They're down 3%, so they're the worst performer this morning, and we're seeing quite a few stocks down 2 and 3%. So the market is generally falling. Looking at the 250, we see here that the best performer is Amigo Holdings, up 1.8%. Chart not really got much data at the moment, and if we look at the downside, we see here Metro Bank. They've been very badly hit this morning, down a further 6%. Big fears going on there about their capital adequacy, and really 50% underperformance versus the market so far this year, so they've really been hit quite hard. Taking a look at Europe, and we saw, of course, the markets were falling quite heavily in Europe. We've got Essilor Exotica in France. They're actually looking quite good, making moves into positive territory on the medium-term chart. On the downside, though, we've got Daimler, car makers again being hit. BMW down 1.5%, Volkswagen down 1.5%. So we are seeing it across the board. The big 3 in Germany all being hit quite badly there. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.